Joining us there. Let's talk about President Trump. He has sent his budget wish list to Congress, proposing a $4.8 trillion budget, well, to boost military funding, also aiming to cut deficits by about $4.6 trillion over a decade by curbs on things like Medicare and Medicaid. Let's go straight over to Michelle, who's on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Happy Monday, Michelle. Lovely to see you. So, how does this work for the uninitiated around the world? I mean, he puts this forward. It's his big wish list, right? But obviously Congress have to approve it.
That's right. So, this is exactly what you described it. A wish list is probably the best characterization. It gives you a sense of what the Trump administration considers as their priorities. There's a couple of things that stand out. There's going to be more spending requested for defense and a 5% request for a cut in non-defense spending. You're already getting sort of some reaction before the budget has even officially been released, with people saying this is heartless, it's going to end up with cuts to entitlement programs. So things that help the poor, that help the elderly, known as Medicaid, Social Security. Those are all sorts of areas that could be targeted for reductions. Food stamps, there's another area which could be cut. Those are the kinds of things. You're also going to see spending on foreign affairs being cut by 21%. And you've got people saying, hang on a second, at a time when you've got China investing heavily in things like its Road and Belt Initiative, is that the right approach? Some former National Security Council officials already speaking out about that on Twitter. But again, all of this ahead of the official release, which happens at midday Eastern time, where no doubt we'll get a lot more sort of paring over the numbers to see whether or not it adds up. And of course, as you say, it still has to be approved by Congress, which is unlikely, and it breaks a 2-year spending cap that Congress had already reached with the president last year.
Yeah, well, it's all a go. I know you're going to keep across it, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a lovely day. We'll see you soon. We'll see you probably maybe tomorrow. Michelle Fleury on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Let me just touch on...
Let's turn to the US, because President Trump has sent his $4.8 trillion budget wish list to Congress. It's thought to include a boost to military funding and an aim to trim the deficit by $4.6 trillion over the next decade. But the big loser is social services, with cuts to Medicare and Medicaid expected. Let's head to New York. Let's head to Michelle Fleury. Michelle, what more can you tell us about what is expected in this budget?
Yeah, people are already characterizing this as something as a gift to the Democratic Party. Look, here's what Trump's budget does. It funds the wall, it supports the military, but it also cuts billions of dollars from Social Security, Medicare and Medicaid, those programs that help the elderly, the poorest. It also cuts food stamps, programs to help young children, the sort of social safety net here in the United States. Internationally, it cuts the foreign aid budget by 21%. You've got people sort of expressing concern about that at a time when China is investing heavily in its Belt and Road project to try and sort of increase its influence internationally. Many argue that the US needs more investment in soft power, not less. It cuts its transportation budget. This is from a president who's promised to invest heavily in infrastructure. You're talking about an over 25% budget cut to the Environmental Protection Agency, health services, education. The list goes on. Part of the reason you'll hear the administration say is that the US government is spending more than it takes in. You've got the US debt that has risen really $3 trillion roughly in Trump's first 3 years in office. This plan essentially adds to the debt, despite the fact that he hopes to reduce the deficit by $4.6 trillion over a decade. A far cry, though, if you look at past Republican presidents who've typically said they would try to balance the budget. This isn't a call for that. This is a reduction.
Interesting, all of that in the 2020 election year. A couple of sentences only, Michelle. Is Congress likely to approve this?
So Congress gets the final say. Very unlikely. Bernie Sanders already tweeting the fact that he's making it a campaign session. Medicare, Social Security. He reminded voters that Trump said he would protect it. Now talks of cutting it.
Michelle, you've done it. Well done. Brief and to the point, which brings us to the end of today's Global Business. Thanks so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you at the same time tomorrow. Bye for now.